Earth, our home. It's a beautiful planet with blue seas and great mountains, with flowing rivers and great forests. It protects us and gives us life, livelihood, and sustenance. Earth, our home, is also a dangerous place. Nature can strike at any time with devastating results. And no area in the world is as risk-prone as the Asian continent.
Afghanistan is also one of the disaster-prone country.
In Bangladesh, we have all sorts of disasters.
Maldives, the islands are really at risk of disasters.
We have earthquakes.
We have about 20 typhoons in a year.
Our country in Myanmar has a storm, cyclone.
Every year, more than 100,000 people are killed in natural disasters globally. And the brunt of that is in Asia.
Basically, the whole supermarket of disasters is in Asia.
Asia is a region that is populous, developing fast, and coming out of poverty. Governments have spent billions building infrastructure, roads, schools, hospitals. People have spent decades rising out of subsistence and building a better tomorrow for themselves and their families. A single natural hazard can cause all of this to be wiped out.
More number of people are now dying of disasters than there were, let's say, 50 years ago.
If you look at disasters today, the economic losses are increasing very rapidly.
So the last 40 years, we have been developing our infrastructure. And one large earthquake can damage all the gains that we have made.
Then there is loss of livelihoods. You know, in certain cases, there have been generations practicing a particular occupation, and in one shot, all that is lost.
We cannot afford again and again to lose all our investment in development because of disasters.
When a disaster strikes, the world responds by rushing into a disaster zone, trying to pick up the pieces, trying to help survivors recover. But often, it is too late. People are gone, families are destroyed, and natural resilience is shattered under the onslaught of nature.
What happened in Aceh tsunami, I myself found it out is that I don't know how to start life again from individual perspective, and I'm even don't dare to think about how to restart community again, restart family again. You lost your emotion. Sometimes you don't feel to live again because your parent is gone. Your beloved people is gone. Imagine yourself with your family, your kid, your parents gone, and you're alone. Sometimes even you don't want to live again.
Billions are poured into response and recovery. But when another disaster strikes, these too are washed away. However, not all losses are tangible.
The trauma people go through in a disaster situation, which takes a very long time to heal, which actually hinders their own personal growth in many ways.
I am from Aceh. I lost my family, and I can see that the disaster more beyond that what you can see physically. For instance, that you lost that the what you call it, the informal leader, the leader in the community that help you solve daily problem, that help you seeking advice if you have like really problem in society. But when like tsunami came and these people is gone, dead, and how do you start again?
With the frequency of disasters increasing, relief and rehabilitation work has also increased. What happens is that people slip into a downward spiral. Battered by the elements and saved by outside intervention, they lose their natural resilience. They forget accumulated knowledge from past generations. They become used to handouts. They become dependent.
We are putting Band-Aid on an infected wound. and you were not really able to deal with the underlying causes. And when you started to repeat your responses again and again with more severe, more frequent disasters, you realize that this is not the answer.
Often the question is asked, aren't you really making these communities dependent by having relief and rehabilitation programs driven by outside agencies? Yes, this has been the case. This has been the rule more than the exception.
We can't keep putting Band-Aid on the world, we keep putting Band-Aid in the sense that whenever we want to respond to disaster, we seem to be patching things up, and that's not the way forward.
The way forward is accepting that we live in a dangerous world, understanding the nature of the risks and orienting everything from policy to people to overcoming these, so that people and communities can thrive.
We need to find a way to make sure that vulnerable communities build their resilience, find solutions that are unique to their communities in how they're going to face future vulnerabilities or reduce them.
We need to be prepared ourselves as well as, to protect the environment so that we have a better, safer world.
If we can invest little bit more or substantially more in the preparedness, I think it will give us bigger and better dividends.
Relief is short terms. You have already lost few precious lives, you have lost livelihoods. I think this entire mindset needs to change. What we need to go ahead is ensure that people are safer in their environment in which they stay, and the disasters don't affect their lives and livelihood.
To achieve this, there needs to be holistic planning. Governments and international agencies need to understand the vulnerabilities at each local level and factor these into every policy, every development activity, and every infrastructure project that is undertaken.
We need to invest, we need to be aware of how nature acts and what is the potential impact of actions we take, whether we build roads or whether we make our cities larger or the way we consume energy. And therefore, we need to take actions that can at some point in future prevent disasters.
First you know the risk, then the risk, internalization of the risk, and then I would say that framing up or developing the required steps for minimizing the risk.
This is the essence of disaster risk reduction, or DRR, an approach that allows people to be self-reliant, communities to be resilient, and development to be secure.
Disaster risk reduction to us is really sort of a people's capacity building and reducing people's vulnerability to risks.
DRR is for me the possibility to help people themselves building resilience where they live, where they work, where they have their core activities, being able to protect their families and their belongings.
I would say safe, develop, and I would add that concept of disaster resilience.
It is also involving policy change, involving mindset change to make sure that at the end of the day vulnerabilities are not rebuilt or escalated.
The concept of DRR is so important to save life.
Disaster risk reduction is an integrated approach to development by taking into account needs and concerns of local communities.
DRR is development because it ensures development, it ensures sustainability of development. Therefore, you construct, for instance, you construct a road, earthen road in a village, unless you realize that this road might be washed away in the next flood, you don't integrate some of the aspects, some of the characteristics into that road to make sure that it is not washed away by the next flood. So therefore you are thinking about risk reduction while you are making this road.
Very often, in the hurry to develop, central planners forget native wisdom and the experience of communities that have lived in an area for generations.
Societies who had developed coping capacities to deal with such disasters, that wisdom which was there with our generations and ancestors has not been recognized and not been brought forward to the current generations.
In Aceh, there is one island, it's called Simelu. Because there is well spread knowledge about the tsunami, telling to their kids by generation to generation, and that people from that area are much more safer. Community know what tsunami is. They tell their kids, if you see one day the level of this, the water of the sea going down, don't go to the sea, but run to the mountain. When they see the water level going down to the sea, they say, "Amo, amo." So everyone is just run to the mountain. But the other side of the city, like say in Banache, they don't have clue. What they see, there are a lot of fish on there. Then they try to grab them and they're dead.
DRR is about taking tangible steps to make the world a safer place. It's about saving lives and the social, economic, and environmental assets of communities and countries. It's about policies that put people and their safety at the center of all activities.
A key challenge is in the culture. It's also what brings political capital to people in power. That means that we need to translate messages so people also understand that lack of preparedness, the fact that we didn't take action also has a political cost.
The bottom line is that if we have a very strong will to say that we cannot afford a single life to be lost due to a disaster, then all other things will naturally follow.
DRR works best when every policy is translated into implementation, intention converted into action, and communities and individuals are handed back control of their own lives. In the village of Pagog in Himachal Pradesh, India, villagers are happy that a road is reaching their village for the first time in history. This is a hilly region, prone to landslides and earthquakes. The road that is coming up here has factored in these hazards. Made in consultation with the village headmen, local NGOs who help sensitize local communities, and the local government, the road is built to last.
एब्रसन्नी पगोग जो रोड बनाया जा रहा है वो इतना चौड़ा बनाया जा रहा है कि अगर किसी भी किस्म की आपदा हो तो उससे निपटने के लिए हम पूर्ण रूप से तैयार हैं। और साथ ही साथ जो ये रोड बनाया जा रहा है इसमें जहाँ भी कोई बड़ा जो रिस्की पॉइंट है वहाँ पे रिटेनिंग वॉल लगाई जाए, ऐसे पैराफिट्स लगाए जाए और ऐसे वहाँ पे बाउंड्री वॉल्स लगाई जाए जहाँ से कोई किसी किस्म का ना आने जाने वाले लोगों को नुकसान हो और ना ही जो हमारे यहाँ से वाहन चलेंगे ना ही उनको नुकसान हो।
It is a road which has been built by the government using local labor, consulting the local community and putting in place measures that will keep the people in the village and their brand new road safe. The cost of implementing DRR here is the cost of keeping the road safe from natural hazards.
It does not require a separate investment as such. What we need to do is look at the costs which are going into our present developmental activities and see how much of that is actually investing in making sure that that facility which we are creating or that product which is coming out of our investment is safe and secure for a long time to come.
Satyavrat Sharma is an engineer who works with local communities, contractors and masons to ensure that older buildings in earthquake-prone regions are made safer.
रेट्रोफिटिंग एक ऐसी टेक्निक है जिसमें हम बिल्डिंग में कुछ ऐसे एलिमेंट्स डालते हैं, कुछ स्टील डालते हैं, जीआई मैश डालते हैं, जिससे बिल्डिंग को स्ट्रॉन्ग कर दिया जाता है ताकि कोई भी आपदा आए, भूकंप आए, हमें ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा वक्त मिल जाए उस बिल्डिंग को खाली करने का।
Take for example an earthquake situation. Earthquakes don't kill, unsafe houses do.
Safer structures cost less in the long run than unsafe structures. But DRR is more than just strengthening structures. It is also about inculcating a culture of prevention and safety from a young age. Yogyakarta, Indonesia, is highly vulnerable to earthquakes. The last earthquake struck here in 2006. A few miles away from the city is the Gunung Mulyo School. It is an integrated school. Here, children with special needs study with other children. Children with special needs are amongst the most vulnerable in society. And DRR here looks at how to keep them safe. All children study side by side, assisted by special teachers. Every child here understands what he or she needs to do if an earthquake strikes and how to help their neighbor.
Bapak Ibu guru sudah mengajari saya tentang gempa, untuk berlindung di bawah meja dan pegangan kaki meja, berlari, berisik, tidak boleh mendorong, tidak boleh kembali ke kelas.
Teachers form the core, training children and the community and getting them to understand the concept of disasters in their immediate environment and what to do when disaster strikes.
Menggayeng kula sangat penting amargi menapa memberikan pengetahuan kepada masyarakat supaya kelak atau besok kalau terjadi gempa masyarakat bisa, terutama anak-anak dan masyarakat bisa tahu kalau nantinya ada gempa lagi.
The best policies in the world are of no use if local communities and individuals are not involved. Communities and individuals want to be safer. All they need is the right exposure.
The underpinning issue I feel is still education. It still needs to be a concept that education is going to be the main driver of long-term sustainable change.
Mount Merapi, Indonesia, is an active volcano. It last erupted in 2006. The Kentongan is an early warning system that tells people in villages adjoining Mount Merapi the volcano is about to blow. The village of Lento is in the path of the lava. People have lived here for generations.
Ya, memang kita dari dulu, dari lahir sudah ada di desa dan hidup tinggal di desa. Mestinya artinya ya kita harus tetap memelihara keadaan alam dan masyarakat, khususnya kami tinggal di daerah bencana ataupun daerah bencana rawan Merapi khususnya, itu kita juga harus siap. Artinya kita harus tetap waspada tentang adanya bencana.
The solution was to train people to live with the volcano so that when it erupts, losses to life and livelihood are minimized. Ahmed Ali Mustafa is a team leader and the coordinator of Pesag Merapi, a local community unit that prepares the village to deal with the volcanic eruptions.
Warga yang ada di desa sini perubahan 10 tahun sebelum ini dan untuk yang sekarang ini memang sangat jauh berbeda. Dengan adanya Pasak Merapi di 4 kabupaten. Jadi ketika terjadi letusan di tahun 94 itu kan banyak yang panik dan bahkan di arah selatan di Turgo itu makan banyak korban yang cukup banyak. Karena belum adanya pelatihan dan mungkin yang mengordinir tentang kegiatan-kegiatan penanggulangan risiko bencana. Untuk yang sekarang ini karena banyak hal yang dilakukan di Pasak Merapi yang didampingi dari UPN, itu kan warga Pasak ini sudah sadar dan mungkin untuk pelatihan-pelatihan karena terlalu mencakup masyarakat yang ada di lereng Merapi, jadi kebanyakan warga di lereng Merapi ini sudah sadar akan adanya bencana dan untuk kesiapsiagaan sudah 60% untuk menanggulangi risiko bencana Merapi.
In South Asia, we always look at the bamboo as being resilient. So the stress may be there, like you may be battered by strong winds, heavy rain, so you may be down, but you can spring back later, remain rooted later. It may take some time.
Resilience is built when people are prepared, when they understand their surroundings and can take action to protect their lives and livelihood. Investment in disaster risk reduction is investing in development of current and future generations. And these investments are marginal compared to the investments in relief and rehabilitation.
The ultimate cost of not investing on DRR has huge implications. The cost of not, for example, ensuring that the buildings are made to earthquake resistant standards, or for that matter not maintained properly, can not just lead to life loss, but huge implications on the local economy, on the political system. I mean, these are costs which are very difficult to even fathom for us.
Global studies have shown that the cost of investing in risk reduction would be 1/3 of the response.
Developing countries like Indonesia and other countries in Asia, we should really invest disaster risk reductions, because this is also not only about economic reasons, not only about physical reasons, but it's also more complex about sustainable development.
If we really want to do something about poverty reduction, if we really want to help the lower or those who has least to lose, well, then we need to invest in disaster reduction and to make sure that we have more resilient communities.
Every dollar spent in preparedness saves $4 to $7 in response. It makes sense. Economically, it makes sense. In terms of long-term sustainability, it makes sense. And therefore, disaster risk reduction should be an integral part of the way we work and the way we think.
Investment in livelihoods. Investment in development, investment in self-reliance, investment in life. Invest today for a safer tomorrow.
The question that, do we care? Do we put attention to that? Do we do something about it?
Focus on community. Focus on community's own resilience, community's own knowledge, community's own experience, and the indigenous capacity, and invest in that.
I will tell policymakers to close their eyes and imagine someone they really, really love being taken away by an earthquake or a tsunami or a cyclone. And thinking back, how and what would they have done to make sure that never happened? I think you need to put yourself in the perspective of those who actually are at risk, and therefore, really put more concerted effort into ensuring that disaster risk reduction is of prime importance in policy development. There has to be a certain amount that is put aside for disaster risk reduction, because at the end of the day, if you don't do that, the economic implications of a disaster hitting the country is just going to come and hit you back.